Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington Show.
Welcome one and all. It's time yet again for the Andy and Rem Show, episode 138. And in this instalment, we're going to learn a shocking news development. Other game systems exist. And as I remove this beautifully crafted Photoshop thumbnail, you'll be able to see the shock and disbelief on the face of Mr. Remington, who's joining me from Remington Studios. And there we go, look at that. Shock, disbelief, bewilderment, befuddlement. Did you know other fantasy game systems exist?
I did not, Andy. I thought Games Workshop were the only company. As I twiddled my moustache.
Well, you'll be shocked to learn that actually other game systems, other game companies do exist, other fantasy games. And from now on, I think we might start talking about them a little bit more.
Well, that's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. I'm going to explain this strategic move to the audience, though, for anyone who perhaps is confused. Because this has been, of course, an Age of Sigmar show primarily since its inception, when we first started to probe the rumour and innuendo surrounding the death of Warhammer Fantasy and the rebirth of the round-based mass battle system. And back in those days, we were attracting a steady viewership of between about 3,000 and 5,000 viewers an episode. Then it settled down to about 1,500 an episode. And then the dark times came, and we weren't able to do as many shows, and the viewership dropped a little bit. When I say a little bit, I mean the relaunched Andy and Rem show now brings in upwards of about 120 viewers, if we're lucky.
That's amazing.
So
that's awesome.
The reason
we've been steadily dropping viewers.
Yes, even though we haven't really been delving too deeply into the rules because we haven't played that much of Age of Sigmar for years now, we still stayed true. The fan base was there, so we decided to keep appeasing them. However, it seems like they've all wandered off now. So we can actually talk about other things without alienating them, because who exactly are we going to alienate? Is there anyone in the chat right now that comes here purely for Age of Sigmar content? I would suggest there's nobody.
Well, I do.
You don't count. You're not a member of the audience.
Okay.
So, I think it's time that we accepted other systems exist on this show, and we look at the new releases from them as well. I think that's fair enough, don't you? And we can compare and contrast to GW, obviously, and see if anyone is going to topple them from the throne, not necessarily the financial or the market dominance throne, but the throne of our attention. That's certainly up for grabs. Fair enough?
Very, yeah. Yeah, cool, man. I'm just here for the crack, you know? I do paint a lot of miniatures still. I've got masses of armies, guys. Give me games. Give me games, man. We've been locked down. We've been trapped. I don't care what system.
Seems like the Remington internet was struggling a little bit there.
No. No!
I like how there was a delay before the word no. Yes, we can. It's just a little bit, it was a little bit glitchy there for a second. So hopefully it's fine, and it'll be smooth sailing from here on out. So the first thing we're going to do, your favourite segment, We're not abandoning GW, don't worry, for anyone that does like the GW gossip. First things first, we're actually, if I can open up the right link, going to, boom, look at the GW stocks. So what's going on in the stock market this week?
Well, as my screen catches up with the actual stream, I can't see what you're seeing. Oh, I can now. Yes. Okay. Well, yesterday there was some news from Games Workshop that they were just as I predicted, guys. You know, I'm not so much a novice as some of you might think in this game. You know, I've been around the block this year more than a couple of times when it comes to the ups and downs of the stock market, especially with Games Workshop. Anyway, we hit the magic £100 a share back again on the news that Games Workshop were going to have another bumper quarter. Yes, sir. And they raised their dividend by what's 50 plus 10? That's 20%. They raised their dividend by 20%. So that means for every share you have in Games Workshop, you'll get 60 pence as opposed to 50 pence. So me being the proud owner of 11 shares means I will receive the maths. What's the maths? 11 times 6 is 66. £6.60? Yes. £6.60 for this quarter I will receive. And yeah, so the shares hit £100 a share, and then they went down again, and then they went up, and then they went down. So now they've settled around 97. Let's look at the year. We're looking at Games Workshop entire share price history there. That's what you're seeing on the screen, and you can see that yeah, it's done pretty well. And that big jagged knife cut in the middle is yes, the COVID um, recession, the COVID scare, whatever. But it didn't scare off Games Workshop's profits. They're doing really well, guys, in case you didn't know. So, you know, they don't really need our help, but we know this show influences them greatly.
It certainly
I'll tell
does,
you that
and
much.
there's been musing in the chat that suggests that maybe the GW shares are going to suffer as a result of us covering more varied game systems on this show, so perhaps now would be a time for you to bail out with that insider knowledge.
Bail out? Bail out? What?
Don't know the meaning of the words.
I was £550 up, and now I'm exactly 50% up and 356. I'm not leaving until it surpasses my previous high. Is that greed? Maybe.
You're always
But
chasing bigger and bigger highs.
that's what makes me the entrepreneur. It's the chase. Yeah.
Chase and not knowing when to quit.
Real gamers here. I'm like the last, you know, I'm the last I'm like the last blackguard of Nagarand, in it till the end. I'm not running away just because everyone else has fallen and quit. You know that. I want to walk into Games Workshop and them go, "Hey, look, there's Remington. Isn't he the famous like Games Workshop investor who owns like a part of this company?" You know what I mean?
I think you maybe own one of the bricks from
I
Warhammer
don't know
World.
if it's even worth that much, to be honest.
I don't know, there's a lot
Like,
of bricks going to that building.
I'll have to do a bit more research and find out exactly how many shares there are in the market cap. I think we're looking at millions. So there you go.
Now, you did send me a couple of article links as well, which I'm going to look at briefly. Suggest
Oh yeah,
there's quite a rosy future for GW, and not
yeah.
just because they've got orcs on the screen, but
Even though a couple of hundred people watch this show at best now, um, I've been saying Games Workshop's been a hidden gem of a share for years. Not for years, okay, for episodes.
so we're
Um,
taking a big risk on this show here because this page I've got here, the adverts on it haven't loaded. So at any moment they could come up with any kind of horrible, vulgar products for sale. So let's read this and hope that they don't. Describing the company's latest upgrade as positive, they bumped up their full year estimate for the Battle Games outfit's profits before tax and earnings per share by 5% to 140 million and 336.0p respectively. So there's a lot of numbers on this article, and the financial expertise of Remington is the one that can delve into that and translate it all for us. So while I look at this wonderful picture, do you want to tell us what it means, those numbers? You sent me the article, I assume you've read it.
No, I didn't read it. I just read the headline.
Okay.
There's 3 articles though. That's not the best one, but that had the best picture.
Well, let's look at the next one then. Games Workshop and the Hutt Group enjoyed lockdown boosts, so not only are GW soaring, but also Jabba the Hutt's descendants are doing quite well. Also. So I don't think we need to know who the Hutt Group are.
Could they have picked a worse photo for this article? Look at that.
Yeah, often when you see articles from news outlets that don't normally cover wargaming content, you'll see like an unpainted Space Marine dreadnought on the table for a game, rather than the usual majestic imagery that you associate with this hobby. So yeah, that's not a particularly great one. That looks like more of an impressive artwork. That palette down there.
Yeah, it looks like that Jackson Pollock painting, doesn't it? That.
Yeah, it looks like something they'd find like a lost artwork that's worth millions in someone's cellar. Okay, so is this the one that's interesting then?
I think so. Just scroll down. Let's read it.
Issued upgrades to the stock market on Monday, explaining that the second national lockdown has brought a surge in extra business. Games Workshop said the retailer now expected pre-tax profits to be no less than £90 million for the 6 months to the end of November, compared with £59 million in the same period a year ago. This was ahead of an update at the start of the English lockdown, where predictions were at least £80 million pre-tax profit. Sales for the period are expected to hit around £185 million, up 25% from £148 million a year ago.
You see, that's much easier to understand. So this time last year, Games Workshop earned £148 million, and this year they've earned 185, which is 25% more, despite the lockdown restrictions. So something's working. I mean, that is phenomenal growth. When you think about, in the past week or so, those of you guys that are not in England, we've got a big department store. It's been going for decades. It's called Debenhams. That has now closed down. We've got shops, franchises closing down left, right, and centre. Of course, that's opportunity for some of us, but Games Workshop having 25% increase in profits is flipping phenomenal. And you could say this is a lockdown stock, but I think these analysts don't understand the company. They're just saying that. I think they would have got that profit no matter whether there's a lockdown or not. I just think the whole thing's growing. I'm not an idiot. I don't think it's just going to pervade into every single person's lives like an Apple or smartphone. But for what it is, it's like, yeah.
I also
amazing.
saw there was an article that I saw. It was about Brexit negotiations and the fishing industry, and apparently Games Workshop is 4 times bigger than the UK fishing industry.
Wow.
Which makes you think.
It might be its valuation. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm eating more and more vegetarian stuff and enjoying it. I mean, I've been eating. Have you heard of Beyond Meat?
Beyond Meat, isn't that your podcast?
I've been eating Beyond Meat burgers, and they taste flipping phenomenal, and it's plant food. So, I bought shares in them as well.
What? Are we going to get weekly updates? We need to see your entire portfolio.
I might do that actually. I might do that. I'm currently 13% up on my entire portfolio.
That's something you should have on your channel, Remington's portfolio.
If the few dozen people that watch this show would be interested, I'd be happy to share it. Like, I'm not an expert.
Well, you say that. You say you would. You say you'd be happy to share it, but other times they've expressed interest in your channel, in your personal content. said, well, if people want to see it, I'll do it. I'll bring back Remington's Pillow Talk. Then there's been just a swell of demand, and then you've ignored it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't hold your breath,
I'm a
folks.
busy man, dude. I'm a busy man. Beyond Meat stocks are expensive, says Roshi. Yes, they are, but not when you buy them in the
By the way,
crash,
I've got a
and not when
name
you
for your
buy them on a dip.
series, a name for your
Go
stock
on.
series on your channel. Any portfolio in a storm.
I think that's a good title for an episode, but it's a bit of a mouthful.
Anyway, can we look at some stuff now?
Yeah, go on.
So, just to show we're not abandoning GW completely, we have got a little bit of AoS to look at before we start leaping on the other systems.
Oh man,
So,
but what about Warhammer? What about Total War Warhammer? The Wood Elf update, phenomenal. That's what I've been playing.
you didn't send me a link to that. I
I
have
think I'm
seen
back.
that actually.
I'm
But
addicted.
how are you enjoying
I'm
that? Which faction are you playing at the moment?
the Sisters of Twilight, Arahan and Nestra. And although there's a little bug in the game that doesn't allow them to ride the forest dragon, at least in my version, it is really good fun. Really, the music's phenomenal. The new units are really cool. I've just forgotten how great it is to have a shooty army. Anyway, so I went down the shop when the lockdown ended, and I bought some Wild Riders. So there. So my Wood Elf army is back to it's getting up to full strength. Oh, I mean, Sisters. City of Sigmar army. I mean,
So,
how do you shoehorn Wood Elves into that? It's ridiculous. I'll stop ranting now.
with your purchases of their products and your faith in their stocks, your unwavering faith in their stocks, you're probably propping up their business at this point.
About that,
So, let's have a
I
look.
did. Go on.
Let's dive in here. Slaaneshi Knights. Same kind of creatures that we usually associate with them, but obviously looking a bit new. And instead of traditional weapons, they are clearly armed with magnificent flesh lances. How do you feel about that? Would you
That's
go?
not new. They always had those, didn't they? I've
Oh,
got some. I've got some. What's up? What's up?
oh, those guys not new. Oh,
Slightly different build to them.
well, that's
What are they called?
disappointing.
Seekers of Slaanesh, or sort of Hellstriders of Slaanesh. Like his arm is a lance. I don't know. You probably can't see that, but
Well, this is very disappointing if they're not new. But there's more new stuff anyway, so let's look at that instead. We've got sneak previews. We've got the Bliss Barb Archers.
oh, that's
And we only get a little snippet of each unit. But I'm still disappointed that I didn't see these before.
I
Anyway,
love this, Andy. It's like an Arabian vibe. It's what I've been waiting for. You know?
no flesh lances in sight here, but obviously missile troops. Blissbarb archers, the lowest echelon of mortal hedonites of Slaanesh, means they're not even permitted the ecstasy of duking it out in melee combat with their sensation-seeking friends. Kill their arrowheads in bliss brew toxin, which overwhelms the senses of those they hit, unraveling an enemy's carefully laid battle plans as their forces are overcome with pleasure and pain. It's very distracting. Next, we have the Blissbarb Seekers. What's different about them? Let's see. Blissbarb archers who've had a close shave with an enemy blade may discover that they're moved by the desire to find and tame an exalted steed of their god, who is even more likely to kill them, much to their alarm. Most fail, which is no surprise given that these steeds are as bad-tempered as flesh hounds and quite a bit faster. Those who succeed become addicted to speed, unleashing volleys of toxin-tipped arrows as they barrel around the battlefield.
Wow. What are the steeds like? Have we got a picture of the steeds?
Doesn't look like it. We got little sneak snippets so far.
I mean, I can't keep up with Games Workshop. Everything's moving so fast. I mean, look what arrived in the post the other day. I mean, Jesus, I've got like 10 packs of these now.
Slick Blade Seekers. Some seekers just want to get stuck into the heart of battle and swap their bows for ornate and extremely sharp glaives. These slick blade seekers get their name from all the blood that soon coats their weapons as they revel in the thrill of decapitating unwary foes. They think of themselves as princes of exquisite murder. Get a bit miffed when anyone tries to upstage their kills. A bit of friendly competition is never a bad thing, we suppose. And this is the one that's got me. Slangor Fiend Bloods. So Slaaneshi goat people. And these have even more text. Slangor Fiend Bloods are beast men in service to the Dark Prince. They wander through life in a glassy-eyed stupor, sound familiar? Weighted on claw and hoof by adoring Sybarites who venerate them as avatars of their god. How Slaanesh feels about this comparison is unclear. In combat, they're engines of wanton destruction, shock troops with no care for their own lives, as long as they can snip some enemy heads with their impressively sharp appendages. Sounds like something from the Forest of Rem. And yeah, that's it.
Stu Gibson says, I'm sold pretty hard on these new Slaanesh models. Looks like I'll be diving right back into AoS.
Diving back into AoS, face first, wallet open.
Andy, once again, going against the trend. Just when everyone's getting back into AoS, you want to pull out.
Well, actually, people aren't. Apparently, it's kind of in a weird place at the moment, the community, as people are waiting on another edition. So,
really?
Apparently. So that's enough Slaanesh for now. Let's look at some other stuff.
I like it. Just to round off, if you could interview any Chaos God, Andy, which one would it be?
On this show, because this is a family show, then it wouldn't be Slaanesh.
Oh, mine would. What about you?
Don't know if Khorne would be particularly family friendly either. Maybe Tzeentch would be the friendliest.
Yeah, that would just be really confusing, I think. He'd answer your questions before you've even asked them.
It'd be like the riddles on Witch Coven.
I know. Like, wicked and meticulous and,
So, you're a fan of rats?
No.
Yeah, you are. Everyone loves Skaven. Everyone loves Vermintide. And
I love Vermintide.
When it comes to rats, they haven't been given a huge amount of attention from GW. However, Mantic originally had ratkin as a list to facilitate the play from old Skaven players, the refugees from Warhammer. Now they were actually coming out with a full range of ratkin miniatures.
So you mean you couldn't get ratmen from Mantic before?
Only in their sci-fi universe, and you could then convert them. But hard plastic ratkin, so plastic miniatures, and look at that. So the backstory to these ratkin is that the Abyssal Dwarves conjured them up in sick experiments so they would have more bodies to throw into war, and then eventually they escaped and formed their own colonies with their brood mothers spawning endless hordes of rats, and they have some kind of vile machinery you can see in the background, a giant, whether that's a big tunneling or whether it's a big giant creature that's bound in there, I'm not sure, but something hideous.
What about that for a centerpiece model in a Skaven/Ratman army? The Brood Mother.
Well, the Brood Mother does exist, and I'll see if she's in here. So, there are some ratkin models featuring there, and in front of some Abyssal Dwarves. There's some better close-ups here. So, these are the new models, and I think you'll agree, these look very good. All Mantic's new stuff does look good. I don't know what they changed, but suddenly their stuff looks way more professional in the last few years.
I've got to admit, Andy, they look really good. Are these like your sort of slave Skaven, or are these like assassins? What are
I think these will be your basic rats.
They look really good. I like the flesh.
There's more pictures to come as well.
Facial expressions.
They just look like really good sculpts, like all the new Mantic stuff. So very nice indeed.
Good paint jobs too.
That's another thing Mantic upped. I remember being critical in the past of some of the paint jobs on the Mantic website, but they upped their game on that in the last few years as well.
But these look
full
like
unit here. Let your currency. Oh, go on then.
These look like Plague Priest, don't they?
Trying to select my currency. No. Well, you know what? Let's just try another page. It's gone.
You gonna buy some?
If I want to start the new Kings of War army, then I certainly could.
So what units can you get then? They look like sort of plague priests, don't they? Plague
Well,
monk.
you have options. You can build them this way, which is your standard ratty kind of unit. I think you can build them as the slave units as well. Standard rats and the spear wielding rats as well, which would be these ones, all from the plastic kit. And then there are upgrade parts as well. And before we get to those, actually, look at this creature. That's got to be quite impressive.
Wow, Lord. Oh my God. Wow.
Definitely
That's
upping their
terrifying,
game
isn't it?
in recent years. And
What's on his back, Andy? It looks like some.
let's see if we've got a
on his
painted
back.
one. Because we've got some other pictures here. So there's the rats again. This is from a bit of an article from their virtual open day where there's some rat content. So these here are their shock troops, which are kind of like their equivalent of storm vermin.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are made
I'm
from the basic rat kit, but then there's an upgrade kit that comes with the weapons and the different heads, presumably.
Andy, you're more of an expert on the pricing, I suppose, having got many Mantic armies. What would like? What's a ballpark figure? I mean, if this is your elite unit, 20 quid for 10.
I'm not sure actually. Oh, there's that thing, fully painted. You can feast your eyes on that while I'm talking about Mantic pricing. So obviously, as their quality improved, they're not as much of the budget company as they once were. The prices have obviously gone up, as all the companies have, but the quality has gone up sufficiently so that I don't think you really care. Their big centerpiece models are significantly cheaper than GW still.
I think maybe they've realised that people actually, the general standard of painting has gone up, and so people would rather have nicely painted models than have hundreds and hundreds of just plastic all over the table, you know, that they'll never paint because it's just too much for chore. So I think now it's like, you know, I don't know though, but I mean, you need a lot of miniatures, right, for a Mantic army? No?
For a Kings of War army, typically you would want to get a lot of miniatures, but your basic troops are usually cheaper, slightly cheaper than some other competition. So
You can use unit fillers though, right? That's what I like as
yes,
well.
the unit fillers are encouraged. You want to get, can't remember the exact percentage of the models that you want to get on the base, but you can put other stuff in there as well. Let's see what else. You can see the back of it there with the pipes that you were commenting on. And look at all those rat tails poking out there as well.
So it gets injected with that stuff and then it kind of goes a bit hyper, right?
Seems that way. And there's more stuff on the fluff behind this faction, not only in here, but also in some of the new books and content from Mantic, which helps to differentiate them a little bit from the Skaven.
I love that model, dude. That's great. I mean, if you wanted to use that in Age of Sigmar, it could be the what's it? We'll call it the Brood Horror. No, maybe.
There's
I
a
know
few
it's
things.
blank
There's
on the show.
the Hell Pit Abomination.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
What do you think of this creature?
Is it like a corn demon?
It's like a giant winged rat demon.
I mean, he looks too elegant. Come on, he looks far too elegant to be a rat, man.
Very tasty.
It's lovely sculpt though. Very nice sculpt. It's got knuckle dusters on. That's nuts.
Very nice. So this is just a taste of the kind of juicy content we're going to be delving into from other companies, and also from Mantic. Something else that's quite new, in fact, some of the goblin models. So, I don't think I've ever spoken about these releases on this channel since they came out. I haven't been able to play much Kings of War, so I haven't needed to look at things like this. But Goblin Flaggit that's a model that I converted myself back in the day, so they've actually got a real model for it now.
And his slight gripe on the Mantic website. Slight gripe, and I'm sorry. Why can't you make the picture bigger? I wanna see the model bigger. I mean, are
Let's
they trying to
see.
hide something? 'Cause
There you go.
they're ever so big, big, big. There we go. Yeah, nice, man.
Very nice. So for the people out there that were, like me, converting models to make their goblin heroes, they don't need to now. Not only that, there's also a king as well. Nice big picture of him. There you go. Also very nice. He looks quite noble there with his helmet. With a unique looking Moorbeast as well. So not just the same two Moorbeast poses that people are used to. And as we go back here, this is a new unit. Goblin Luggets. Let's see if we can zoom in on them a bit. No. No. Nope, it's going haywire. Seems to be as big as it'll allow. So I think you'll agree, Mantic, their reputation for shoddy models, if it was true in the past, definitely not anymore.
Yeah, those swords remind me of the Black Hawk swords in Lord of the Rings. No? I mean, that's what I mean. Make it bigger, Andy. Zoom in. It won't let you. Look.
It might if I enlarge the page, but then that would mess up the intricate system we've got in place on this show. So I'm sure I could get larger pictures of them. But there is a Kings of War starter set with the rats and the goblins in it, which I don't think is available at the moment.
I love it, dude. I love it.
We're going to keep our eyes peeled and keep our eyes firmly on Mantic and all their releases going forward. And next, Kings of War is a damn fine game.
Do you think it's quicker to learn?
It's quicker to learn. You could figure out how to play a game of Kings of War pretty rapidly compared to a lot of other systems out there.
I mean, I remember you teaching me and me, duly sort of destroying you on my first ever game.
I don't quite remember it that way.
I think I do. These look kind of cool, but a little spindly.
So
right?
These are Oathmark rulebook. You can see here. These are Oathmark new skeletons.
Okay, tell me about Oathmark. What's Oathmark?
It is a mass battle fantasy game which I've never played, and somebody sent me the rulebook and said, "Hey, I think you should look at this and maybe cover it on the channel." And I said, "Hey, okay, if I play a game of it, then I certainly will." And then I wasn't able to play any games because of the pandemic. I've still got the book here. I'm going to see if I've got any pictures within the book of a mass battle game going on.
Maybe run through the factions you get. Are they like anything like brand new in there, or is it like,
I think it's
goblins,
pretty
skeletons?
standard factions that you'd expect from a fantasy game. So you've got dwarves, humans, elves, and goblins as the main.
Cool.
And the skeletons here, I think, are among the nicer skeletons that you'll see out there. Obviously, anytime you see skeletons, you compare them to the old Jason and the Argonauts, and do they stack up against that? And I think the face expressions they have are a lot more, because if you think back to those skeletons, they looked evil, but they weren't overly like expressive faces on the skeletons, because it's a skeleton at the end of the day. Whereas certain companies' skeletons have got like big frowns going on that are a bit too exaggerated sometimes.
Sure. So Andy, Oathmark, it's a set of rules, but they've got their own line of miniatures.
There are their own miniatures.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to find out more about this game as time goes on, because I've got the book, so I might as well.
Is it like a skirmish game then? Because they've got round bases.
These ones seem to have round bases, but I'm pretty sure it is mass battle, or at least has the facility for mass battle game.
Okay.
So I think there are people in the chat who know more about Oathmark than I do. Something we can look at further in the future.
Stu Gibson says, "I bought the rule book for Warlords of Everyone." Now, I heard of those because they've got a halfling, s series of miniatures out. You can get halfling pig riders and halfling goat riders and different halfling hot pot stuff, and they've got some really cool looking miniatures. I haven't bought any yet, but he's been trying to figure out, with a few solo games, enjoying it so far, and love that you can use fancy minis from whatever company you like. All good.
Certainly another fantasy game that I don't know anything about yet. But
So Graham Riggs says, Oathmark is a campaign system. You create empires. Yes.
interesting. I think we've got another skeleton picture here. Skeleton archers. I like how he's actually looking down to aim the arrow, even though he's got no eyeballs.
Yeah, they've got some good poses, I think.
I believe they're probably quite posable if they're a multi-part plastic kit as well. So I think these are a definite winner. There's a lot of competition, obviously, for skeletons out there. It's just endless wall of skeletons wherever you look around the miniature world. A lot of them are a little bit dodgy looking. Many of them, metal skeletons are obviously a nightmare. Because it's a skeleton, it's going to be thin. And those tiny little connection points are going to break quite often with metal. So plastic skeletons are the dream. And I think GW's old plastic skeletons, in some ways, I preferred those to the more recent ones. I don't know if you agree, but suddenly when they gained a lot of armor, and they, like with the really giant hands, but the ones previous to that, I always thought were very, very Jason and the Argonauts looking.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a remake of Jason and the Argonauts, don't you?
Don't you think they'd ruin it?
Not if it's like a 10-episode Netflix thing, right? Maybe do it a bit more justice.
That would be interesting, actually. I'd watch it, unless it was awful.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? I mean, I don't know too much about Mantic, but I did buy a bunch of their miniatures back in the day, right? And I have to admit that the best kit at the time was the Mantic zombies. They were phenomenal.
Mantic
Like,
Zombies still stand up today. Very nice.
you get so many miniatures in a box. It's the incredible value. I mean, you can probably build like 35, 40 zombies for like 15, £20, even less than that.
That
And
was
really easy to paint, but look awesome.
my exposure to Mantic originally. I was building my Vampire Counts army.
Yeah.
And
I
heard about this company that do zombies, billions of them for a low, low price. So I was all over that.
You know, I spent 4 years painting a Vampire Counts army, and I only played it once against you for about half an hour.
It sounds like
Because
the
you know
kind of
that.
thing you would do.
Yeah.
Spend a lot of time painting, pouring your blood, sweat, and tears, and your love essence into this army, and then put it on the table for 10 minutes and think, you know what, I'm going to sell this now.
Well,
So,
that's the ebb and flow of things, you know?
got some other stuff to look at though. So, we've looked at some releases there from other systems, Kings of War and Oathmark. If anyone knows of any other releases popping up for other fantasy game systems, feel free to drop them anywhere that we'll see it on the social media. In the Discord server would be a good place, or in the Facebook group. And we'll start to cover more games. And when we're actually able to play games in the flesh a bit, then perhaps we'll start to sample all these wide and varied delights from
It's
the
coming, Andy.
succulent
Open your
world.
heart. Open your mind, open your heart, and it's coming. Lockdown has ended. We've got a tier system here. We're all in the highest tier pretty much, unless you're in a conservative constituency, which we're not. But, yeah, I think, lockdown restrictions are gonna ease. Fingers
Rolling out the vaccine.
bringing out the vaccine already. I think tomorrow they're gonna be giving 40 doses out.
I did see that a couple of patients have already had it, which is nice.
Yeah, except where I live, Leicester's got one of the highest, infection rates. They're not rolling it out here, which is shocking, but there you go.
I'm sure there's a
Um,
sciencey reason for that.
well, we're a Labour constituency, but there you
That'll
go.
be it.
Um, yeah, what we're looking at there, they look like some awesome wood elves.
Well, they look like some awesome wood elves that have kind of got shadows on them, so you can't see them too well. Would this be from Remington's cabinet?
That is from Remington's cabinet. I brought these babies right out again to celebrate Warhammer 2 Wood Elves update. And what you don't see there is, oh, that looks cool, doesn't it? You don't see a centerpiece model, and I want to get one. I want to get the Sisters of Twilight out of production now. It's a metal model. Arahan and Nestra on Forest Dragon. Wouldn't that be
Cecil
cool,
the
Ray?
magical unicorn right there.
There she is. There she is. Maybe. Yes. So this is a mixture of old metal miniatures from the 80s, 90s, and newer ones.
You know, it would look really good as a centerpiece for this army that I think you would do a good job on.
Go on.
The Wood Elf Forest Dragon, the one with the big, expression.
Yeah, that's the one, isn't it?
From the 90s. I think that would look very good.
I'd need some help pinning that together, Andy, so I'll have to bring it round to you. You can help me out with that.
Sounds
I
good.
I was missing some Wild Riders, and I just yeah, I bought some now, so that's cool. My world is sort of complete. I wouldn't mind some Warhawk Riders though.
Classic Warhawk Riders. Have you got any of the single pose archers that used to come in a box of about 10?
Yes, I do. I do have those. I haven't put them in the cabinet actually. Yeah, I've got those. I've got Scarlock's Wood Elf Archers too. Bodie! My dog's whining outside. Can I just let him in? Bobo!
This is going to boost ratings if we get a dog on the show.
Oh,
Oh no.
Cage. Bobo, say hello. Bobo! Said you whining. Look, look at Andy. Oh, Bodie. Go under there.
This is some top-notch excitement. Well, the audience are excited anyway.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
Remington's Wet Dog Wrestling. New segment for the show.
Come on, Bobo. Get in there. You had a massive sausage today. Oh wow, that's a great model. Is that from my collection too? It looks familiar.
I believe that is one of yours. You want to talk us through this? Mighty
Yeah,
Forest Warrior.
that's a Wild Rider. Is it a wild? What's it? It's like a Wild Rider champion. It's a Wild Hunter. That's what it is.
Nice.
Talking of models, that's what I found in my local shop Saturday.
Oh no. You're not found another bargain you're going to sell on eBay, have you?
Yes, I did.
What is it?
That.
Is that Dwarf
Brand new.
Miners?
Yeah, brand new seal pack of Dwarf Miners.
Is that the metal ones?
Yeah.
They're worth their weight in lead, maybe?
Oath gold. Oh, are you going to sit down, pal? Oh. You hear voices, can't you? But you can't hear us talking. That's Andy. He's the Christmas Grinch. Hide.
Is that just the same model again, posed from a different angle?
Yeah, so good. We had to show it twice. Where is this shop? Says Cedar Kudu Khan. Well, if I told you that, mate, then you'd steal all the bargains, wouldn't you? No, it's a great shop, dude. It is Tabletop Tyrant or Gifts for Geeks, Leicester.
So the real tabletop tyrant would be you, who is preventing the geeks from getting their gifts because you're snapping them all up and putting them on eBay.
No. I literally went in there, bought the Wild Riders, and as I just turned round, I don't know why I turned round. I think Sigmar guided my vision, and on the end of the shelf was this packet of miniatures from the 90s, and it was just like, what the hell is that doing there? So there must have been some kind of overstock or something sitting there. £16.
That was a very subtle seg as well there, Mr. Remington, because it just so happens that the next segment coming up may well be What the Hell Is That? And it's a festive bumper edition of What the Hell Is That? In which a festive scene contains 3 hidden miniatures. You can identify all 3, be the winner, and you will be the festive champion this week. Build up a collection of festive champions, and then we'll admire them and not give them any prizes. Because we don't get sponsors anymore, because we only get 130 views. Anyway, it's time for some music, as the What the Hell Is That intro video assaults your senses.
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it a chaos dwarf or a vampire bear? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it Sigmar's beard or Neferata's hat? Oh, what the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? Is it a mangler squig or a sorcerer's rat? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know.
Okay, we are back, and look at that beautiful festive scene that we've got there. Isn't that wonderful? 3 miniatures are hidden in there. Some of them more obvious than others. And the first person to name all 3 in a single comment will be declared the Grand Wiener. What's it going to be? Can you spot any of them without naming them and spoiling it for the audience?
Bodhi is saying you don't know. Bodhi, what can you see in the picture, pal?
I think dog biscuits, probably.
God, you want it? You want it? Ah! Ah! Ah!
A fight to the death on the show.
I like this door stopper.
Remington does battle with a ferocious hellhound. Come on, we need some guesses. We've got 30 people watching right now. Somebody has got to recognise what these things are. At least a couple of them are pretty obvious, if you ask me. But there's someone typing in the solution as we speak. Are the usual champions in this week? Have you seen any of them commenting?
I cannot recognise any of them. I mean, we might have to zoom in a bit, Andrew.
I don't know.
I mean, people watch this on their phones, remember, too, right?
Okay, let's zoom in and cover up Remington's face picture. So, there's one of them there. Can't give you more help than that, folks. Look at that, it's on Santa's hand. What model could that be from? Then we've got this. It's a wing. What is the wing from? And what could this be? Why, it's something poking out the side of the tree that looks swirly, with bits of gold embedded in it. What on earth could it be?
really hard.
Remington there. Somebody's got to get this. Come on, folks. Stu Gibson says, stream is too fuzzy on my phone to tell. It looks like none of the usual champions are here, and everyone else is just inept at this game. Stormcast bird. What kind of a guess is that? Steve says, Blood Bowl human star players bird. Griff someone.
Yeah, Bodie doesn't know either.
Well, I'm going to say that Steve is the champion then, for half guessing one of the miniatures. Oh no, I'm not. Oh, here we go. William. That's what I like to see. So, if Remington's run off chasing his hound. So, William has suggested that perhaps it's Griff Oberwald, Egrim van Horstman's Chaos Dragon, and the Celestant Prime. Let's find out if that's the answer, shall we? As I think you'll find, that is exactly the answer I was looking for. Egrim van Horstman, the legendary Chaos Sorcerer on Hideous Chaos Dragon. I say hideous, it's just got 2 heads. That does not automatically render something hideous. Griff Oberwald, who somebody should have got because we were looking at that only a few weeks ago. And Celestant Prime, most overhyped Stormcast of all. He's just a regular sized Stormcast, but he's got swirly bits on him, which makes him much taller for some reason. And there you go. Well done to William. Just as I'd given up hope, the beacon of sanity has spoken up once again. How's the dog doing?
Yeah, I've let him go. He gone.
Remington has released the hound. We've got a winner, and I think it's time. Is it a popular segment? I don't know. The audience tends to plummet as soon as I bring up this logo. But it's time. Which coven? We're going to get a live musical performance this week, or are we going with the pre-recorded version?
Oh, yeah. No, do you want to play the recorded one?
I think your internet's struggling a bit there.
Let's go with the pre-recorded one, man.
Okay, let's do it.
Andy?
Play it right now.
Which coven, Andy the Young or in which coven? Narrated by Remington Steele, the famous DM in which coven? That's it, a which coven, Andy the Young or in which coven? A world that doesn't care that Andy is a beast man who lays it all bare. Which coven, Andy's gonna get in which coven? He's gonna get it every week. A sacrifice to Cain. He's gonna get it every week. Andy the Young.
Okay, that's enough of that. So everyone, got the orange dye. Hopefully prevent me from dying. Hands of the witch master himself, Remington. Take it away.
Oh, yes. Well, would you believe it? We're on. Is it part 6 of Witch Coven already?
It could well be.
Well, let's have a quick recap for those of you who don't know. Andy is an Ungor, and he's left his tribe to perform a heroic deed to save his bacon and to save the life of a beast lady that he loves with. He's in love with. Anyway, he's got the task of going to a mysterious witch coven and retrieving battle brew and retrieving the head of one of the witches, which you think might be too daunting of a task for a humble Umgor to perform. And so did we, until Andy came across Morgwyn the Crone, who was a jaded witch elf who transformed Andy into a Doomfire warlock, except the spell didn't go quite right, and he turned into a slave. A slave who was taken in by the local dreadlord. Except Andy made a good impression and became the confidant of the dreadlord. Dreadlord didn't know that he was really a pathetic Ungor. No, Andy is now one of the most trusted advisors for the Dread City, and to return the favor, he requested he bequeathed Andy basically a wish, and Andy wanted to be shown this witch coven, and so the Dreadlord put him under the watch, under the wardenship of Draclear, his corsair admiral, and Draclear took him to a strange island where he had heard the witch coven once existed. And Andy took a few companions with him because the Dreadlord's Corsair Admiral didn't want to go. And one of those was Seeger the Eager, the Sea Dog. Seeger the Eager Sea Dog. Say that really fast. So Seeger, okay, knows there's something not quite right with Andy. And Andy, you are worried he knows the truth.
Well, it's okay. I'm going to sacrifice him as soon as we reach danger anyway.
Well, the thing is, he gave you a riddle and you failed the riddle, and now you have to perform a task for this Seeger. And the task, what ended on the bombshell of last episode, was he wants you to kill Draclear so that he can become first admiral of the Dread Fleet. Da, da, da. What will your response be to this, Andy?
Well, have I heard of any particular gripes that these two have had in the past that would cause him to want to rise up, other than your usual elven treachery?
You don't really know the history. You don't really have time to go through it, but you could ask Seeger why he wants to kill the Dread Admiral.
Okay, well.
You will ask him.
Seeger the Eager Sea Dog. Why do you to kill Red Admiral?
Be careful saying that out loud.
Why do you want to kill the Dread Admiral? Seeger the Eager Sea Dog.
He took what belonged to me. And the only way I can get it back is to have him removed from office, but also to have his head removed. Except I can't do this, for it would be murder. However, no one would suspect you, a eunuch. Now, bear in mind, Brackley has been good to you, okay? And the Dreadlord's been good to you. Are you going to play along with this game of death? Or are you going to just point blank refuse? Or will you long this out?
You know what? I think that because my mission is actually to disrupt this entire witch coven, but not only them, I also have no love for these pointy-eared villains either. I think having a bit of unrest and maybe a power struggle would be good for Beastmen in the long run, because they're not going to be bothered by any invading fleets and whatnot, because they'll be too busy struggling for power. So I think going along with this plan is wise. I'm going to suggest that on this strange island, there must be some kind of potent poison that we can spike his evening brew with.
He agrees. In fact, the famed witch coven is famed for its poison brews and various concoctions. So perhaps you could play along with this at least and find something of value to both of you. Kill two birds with one stone because you've got to bring back your own witch brew somehow, plus the head of a witch. And not
Yes.
just any witch, the matriarch of the witch coven.
If I bring back 2 brews, one of them which is fabled to give it eternal life to anyone who drinks it, and then perhaps offer that to the Admiral, when really it's poison.
Well, for that, you would need the advice of Morgwyn, because maybe it's not something you drink to get eternal life. Maybe you have to bathe in it. Anyway, whichever way you've agreed to this task, the Seeger seems pretty content to go along with it, and you travel past the sandy beaches into the rocky, covey inland, and dusk starts to fall. Quite a scary place, really, this. They build a little fire. They seem pretty practical. And you realize you don't know if you're fully equipped for an adventure just yet. You have a tunic and some pantaloons, and you've got pouches, and you're given a knife. That's about it. So you are totally reliant on your companions here. Protect you in a fight. Well, you settle down for the evening, and just before your head to sleep, you hear some screeching. You want to investigate?
Yes.
Well, everyone's up anyway, so you sort of put the camp away and you head towards the noises. And it's not before too long that you were right. Your beast's senses can sense quite well the noises of the forests and the animals of the night, or a swarm of bats envelops you.
Can I try
They're
and swat them
biting,
away with a
flapping.
360?
I think you should do something because the elves have brought out their scimitars and are chopping around, flailing around. Some of them hit their mark, but there's just hundreds and hundreds of these things.
I'm going to attempt a 360 then.
Okay, so you pull your trousers down and you spin round.
Okay, here we go. Rolling the dice. It's a 6.
For some reason, the bats, well done by the way, the bats form a circle and they fly around you as if amused by this feat they've never seen performed before. Meanwhile, the dark elves don't notice this as they're still busy being bitten and flapped on. One of them cries out, although you're protected, it seems, by your cunning move. One of them cries out. It seems like he's been bitten quite severely on the neck. And then all of the bats swarm only onto him, blood suckling his neck and his body. He screams in pain, and the life of this dark elf painfully, disturbingly ebbs away in front of your eyes. So it's just you, Seeger, and one more dark elf. Of course, they're alive now. Seeger doesn't seem too bothered. He seems like perhaps it's a worthy sacrifice, and he wants to move on. What would you like to do? You see a writhing body still moving slightly, and the bats swarmed over him.
Well, the bats are still pretty distracted. So I think we should move on while they're still feasting greedily on the carcass.
Would you like to pick up his weapon, maybe?
Is it within reach without getting into Bat Town?
Is it worth it? I think roll a dice. Roll a dice on your dexterity.
Okay,
You need to roll a
I'll
3
do
or
it.
less.
Here we go. That was loud. It's a 3.
Yes, you just managed to grab the. Is it a cutlass or a scimitar? A bit of both, really. You
I
grab
should
that.
get a smaller dice next time, really.
Yeah, You successfully grab that and you follow the eager seeger towards the cave. In the pitch of night and the blackness and the deep, dark death sounds come from within an enclave. You see a series of stone monuments in the dark. However, you have good eyesight, being a beast man. Not too bad at all. And you see something that looks like a stone altar, something where a body could be lain across. In fact, it's not so dissimilar from the herdstone sacrifices you've seen many times in your tribe's history before when you're growing up. You see piles of bones and skulls and dried blood all over the altar. You can sniff it too. It seems quite fresh. It seems that you have entered maybe some kind of entrance. Do you want to stop here for the rest of the night, or do you want to find your way into?
I think before we stop at an entrance that's full of like fresh corpses, we should probably investigate and see what kind of creature dwells within. So I'm going to send the unnamed elf, not Eager Seeger. I'm going to send the other guy in with a torch.
He's quite brave. So he lights his torch. He has a stick wrapped in cloth and oil, lights it up. And as he lights it up, it's almost like the air around him also lights up with a green mystical flame. And through this green mystical flame, the whole scene where you're stood becomes a light. And you find yourself standing in the midst of what was once a huge ceremony, a sacrifice perhaps to the god Cain, whose statue you came across and destroyed, by the way, with some help of a Cygor. It seems like you have arrived at the coven of the witches. Mm. And with that, we shall end today's episode
Bum,
of
bum,
Witch
bum.
Coven.
Well, people were eager. Not as eager as Seeger, the eager sea dog, but eager in general to reach the witch coven. It seems we may have finally arrived. So I'm sure you've got huge plans for next week and yet another bumper festive edition of Witch Coven.
I'm just writing down some notes so I'll remember for next time.
Witch Coven, Witch Coven, Andy the Ungorian Witch Coven. He's a DM that doesn't care. Remington and his mutt.
Lay it all bare. Andy the Younger is getting down. He's getting down and dirty in Witch Coven. It's time you did get down and dirty in this adventure, isn't it?
Haven't I already been killed at least once?
We're going to see some bloody action coming soon.
We better see plenty of combat next week. That's what people want. They want heads being severed left and right. They want limbs, bloody organs spilt everywhere. That's what you need around Christmas time.
I think there's less than a 6% chance that you're going to make it out of this adventure alive, Andy. But, you know, them's the odds we like.
So, I'm just looking at the calendar. And it seems like the show won't be interrupted unless Mr. Remington's going to be out for a week or two at any of the festive period. So there shouldn't be too much of an interruption to our show.
Well, I get a couple of weeks holiday, so we're going to... Yeah. Well, I get a couple of weeks holiday, right? Coming soon.
And also...
get some games in. Are you going to stay in Nottingham during this festive period?
Yes. And I'm also going to remind Mr. Remington now, live on the air, so everyone knows that your Christmas present is waiting for you. So you'll have to collect that at some point. So we can discuss that further after the show, but it's very exciting. And I think that's pretty much everything.
Andy, do you think we should do a Christmas special and invite loads of guests on like we used to do? You know?
We certainly
Get
could
faux
do that. And I think you send me a list after the show of all the guests you want to come on, and then I'll send you a list of reasons why none of them can make it.
That's what usually happens. But yeah, if you feel like being a guest on the show, even if for a few minutes or for the whole thing, that'd be awesome.
Let's have a look at this thumbnail again then, folks. So you had a bit of a taster of the expanded fantasy gaming coverage you can expect on this channel. And when there aren't releases, there may be a topic we'll delve further into some of these game systems in general, rather than just looking at their releases. So look forward to that. You can look forward to Mr. Remington trying some of these other games as well, as hopefully the world slowly gets back to normal over the coming weeks and months. We shall see, and gaming becomes more of a thing that can actually happen. And Steve is demanding more Kings of War. Yes, I would have liked to have been doing Kings of War battle reports this whole time, but of course, gaming not the easiest thing to do at the moment. So I'm just going to head on over to the Patreon so I can personally thank everyone who's pledged at a certain level that guarantees them a personal thanks at the end of each episode, because they are so spicy and generous and supportive of this channel and this endeavour to bring the red hot, succulent, spicy, tender, moist, juicy, dishlicious and finger-licking good content to the masses. So, extra special spicy thanks to the following people: Graham, Kim, John, Eric, Barbara and Guy. All of you, extra spicy thanks. Don't forget, everyone, to check out all the links in the video description, including the Facebook group, the Discord server. There's links to all the various fundraising sources down there as well, including Redbubble merch with Witch Coven merchandise available. And I've heavily discounted all of the merch for the festive season. So if you want to get your Witch Coven coaster, if you want to get your Andy and Rome Show bedspread, if you want to get your Andy 2D6 mug, or a Forest of Rem clock, all of those things and more available on the Redbubble just in time for Christmas. Mr. Remington, would you like to audience any parting words?
I will give you some parting words. Happy holidays, guys. Hang in there. We can all get through this together. I'm going to be going down to Andy's in Nottingham at some point, maybe when restrictions are less severe. We'll be having some games, man, either at Warhammer World or round Andy's place. It's going to be awesome. And I'm thinking, being as we shouldn't be too far away from Nottingham's fabled Sherwood Forest, perhaps we could film a live episode of Witch Coven on location. How about that, Andy?
We certainly could do that. We might get laughed out of town.
We could film. We don't have an Ungor costume for you, but you could dress as a eunuch, I suppose, and I could guide you through. It could be like a live action role play, maybe a scene from it, or maybe it could turn into just a funny video montage that we play in the show.
Well, we should pledge that when the pandemic is over, we will host either a Witch Coven or a Forest of Rem live action role play somewhere. I think people would be down to join in with that. Anyway, on that note, time to say goodnight until next week. Unless there's Vermintide between now and then, which there should be.
Oh, so, yeah, man.
Look forward to that. Check the various social media outlets and I'll announce when that's coming up. And all that remains to be said at this point is good night out there. Whatever
the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about